love Jimi Hendrix. But I think I hit a phase in my life where I was like, that's old guy music, and I don't want nothing to do with that. That's my dad's shit. But then as I got older and I started to really appreciate music, I saw Jimi Hendrix as like a god. Like he was a guitar god. You know, without Jimi Hendrix.
I got into Jimi Hendrix. I got into him later in life through my older sister was, I mean, she was older than me, and she hooked up with a guy, and they got married and had children and stuff, and he was like 22 years older than her.
Ooh.
So, and this guy was like as cool as fuck, man, and totally missed the guy all the time, man. It was absolute, real, the best of step brothers you could ever have.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, yeah, he's passed away now.
Oh.
He got me into Jimi Hendrix in the way that he would infuse him. And this guy, he's got stories. He's seen this guy. He saw him 3 times in 1 year in UK. So it was 1967. Okay, so Jimi Hendrix had come over in like 66 to London.
That's early.
And he was playing a few gigs. And he had been on Top of the Pops, I think, which is like our music show of the time. It was run for years and years.
67 would have been around the time. He was really only big in England.
Yeah, well, I say he'd come to England apparently, and it was over the Christmas period. He had released Hey Joe, and Hey Joe was doing really well in the UK charts and stuff. So he was playing some gigs, but it was all quite low key, and he was with friends in London, and they used to hang out in London, going to music gigs and stuff. And there's a place in London called Chislehurst Caves. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I've never heard of that.
Okay, so basically underneath, just sort of south of London, there's this series of caves. Okay, so it's like basically they're like chalk caves, flint caves, man-made, but they've been there for thousands of years. And there's 22 miles of these caves.
Wow.
With different different sort of, carved out big sections and stuff.
Okay.
And during the war, I mean, there was like 8,000 beds down there, 9,000 beds. And during the war, people could pay a penny to sleep in the caves to be safe from sort of air raids and stuff.
Wow, I never heard of that. And that's awesome.
Yeah, man, they had like hospitals and, all sorts of ammunition stores and all the rest. So, but then after the war, they're sort of a bit unused, and people started doing music events down there, like illegals.
That's awesome.
And it was always illegal to play Chislehurst Caves, but massive. I mean, Pink Floyd played there, The Who, The Beatles. All these crazy people have played in these cave systems. They're in London, and they hear, the geezer that was on Top of the Pops, this Jimi Hendrix, he's going to play a gig in the caves, and this is like January '67. Yeah. And so he says, so we go, and there's this Jimi Hendrix playing in these cave systems. He said, and it was the most, and talking to him as well, I'm talking to Stuart was his name, my brother-in-law, and you can just see in his face, he was like, he was his hero totally, and he was like, oh my God, the times I saw him. So yeah, he tells the story, there he is, and with his, and they're like 16 years old, down in these caves listening to Jimi Hendrix. Just rocking out. He said it's all stinking of marijuana, and it was crazy.
That is probably one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
Well, they said, so he plays the caves, and then they lived in Bristol at the time, which is out on the west coast of England. And then in April, his mate goes, oh, you'd never guess what? Jimi Hendrix, he's now going to play at Bath, which is another, 40 miles away or so, because Chuck Berry's cancelled. Because apparently it was a Monday night, Monday night showcase. And they had Chuck Berry and did all the promo. And apparently he was a bit notorious for being a bit prima donna and pulling gigs. And he pulled the gig with like 2 days to go. So essentially they got Jimi Hendrix to say, yeah, I'll come and play Bath Pavilion. Printed up some flyers and put them out. And they hitchhiked this 40 miles as 16-year-old, and then caught him again. And they said, because of the Bath Pavilion was a bit weird, they'd literally pushed together like 3 or 4 tables, and Jimi Hendrix was just stood on these tables on the stage, just playing. He goes, and that's the first time, I think he said, they played Foxy Lady to that they had heard it, because that's obviously was released 67. They were like, yeah, he said, just that build-up was like, he said it just, insane, insane. And then he said he saw him the last time was November, where he played Colston Hall in Bristol, because he said, "Yeah, I'm buzzing," because he actually came to Bristol, to our home, hometown as such. He said, and by then he was really into, playing it off the drums and off the roadies and just holding his guitar against everything. Because I think he said that, yes, the Colston one was where he finished with Purple Haze, and he said, and the place was just like, and they're just like, this is going to be insane. But then shortly after he was moved and out and off and gone. So yeah, so from Jimmy James and the Blue Tones in 1965 to, just 2 years later, just off and rocketing it. But imagine seeing Hendrix 3 times in 1 year when you're 16.
I am mystified by this. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to go see, first off, just to see Jimi Hendrix, but in a cave system.
Yeah, man, you should look at also in Chislehurst, because he said you went to see him in the caves, and it was, he said it was Engelbert Humperdinck. Then Jimi Hendrix, and there was but it's like the most random bands put together. But at the time, they're all beginning their careers, and there they all are together. But yeah, Pink Floyd then, they played Chislehurst a few times in the caves, and they used it in like 74 to launch their Swan Song record label, and they had a big party in the caves, and they did like a launch party, and they had like weird performance wrestlers and like women in coffins covered in jelly and sorts of
so
weird.
It is so weird.
Yeah, man, how good would that have been?
Oh my god!
I think they used it for because it was always illegal, because it was actually the place. I think it's owned by like a mushroom company from after the war. They bought it to grow mushrooms,
like
in there
magic mushrooms, like the good kind. No. Okay.
No, just mushrooms, I think, because of the lovely cave atmosphere.
Yeah,
I think they stopped. In the 70s, they stopped it, but there's still a bar there. There's still a bar, like just in the entrances of the caves, where you can go and have a drink. So
that I have like slack jawed listening to this, because I've heard, you've told me some stories over Twitter Spaces. Which, shout out, by the way, if you guys are on Twitter and you want to come actually talk to all of us.
We have fun on Twitter Spaces, don't we?
We have a great time. We're usually on there a couple hours, but definitely jump on there. You can, if you follow Chatsmash or Break On Through or Piggly Dog, Rick, we're usually on there every day. So come check us out. But listening to that story, that is not one I've heard from you. That is one I feel like you should have told me already, because that.
Oh, you see, once I knew I was coming on, I'm like, oh, man, I can tell him all Stuart's stories, man.
That is awesome. That is probably one of the coolest stories I've heard.
But that's, like I said, the guy, this guy was like, he just saw everybody. He's like, they were just all around, man. All these bands, all like The Who, The Stones, everybody. They're just always in and out of these little towns at the time.
I feel like, being in the UK, like, not only do so many bands come from there, but it was especially back in the day, it was such a hot spot for American bands and UK bands. They came over there, and the country is quite a big amount smaller than the US. So like when somebody plays, like if somebody plays California, I live in Florida, that's like a 2-day drive, 3-day drive. So I mean, it's
we're literally, I mean, like, exactly that. It is. Nearly everywhere is just a few hours apart, really, over here. So
that's amazing. Well, I want to touch in a little bit about the Mud Hut stories and like how you got into all that part of your life.
Okay, so I'd say that from basically we did like the rock thing. I basically walked out of school at 13, so I was out of the gangs because the school was a fucking war zone. So I just gave that up as a bad thing. Ended up, doing my own thing, fishing boats.
I was going to say, you were a fishing boat kid.
That was it, man. That was it. I just walked out at 13, got my job, got a job on a fishing boat, and for 3 years was a fisherman. So, but yeah, that was great. Once I was old enough to leave home, I moved back down here straight away from the north, and ended up, sort of bumming around for a year or two, and then hooked up with a girl at the time, and we got into. She was basically working with Greenpeace, the environmental organisation.
Yeah, I know Greenpeace is.
So she was a sort of area coordinator for our county. So I was going out with her, at the time, and so we were, doing a lot of, actions and things like that. But part of Glastonbury's work, part of Greenpeace's work in the UK is they sponsor or they put a lot of advertising that around the Glastonbury Festival. So as such, you could get in free to Glastonbury. We'd put the banners on the stage and generally dress the place out and stuff and do different jobs. And now the first time I went to Glastonbury was 1994, but the first time I jumped the fence. But I didn't jump the fence, I went under the fence. So we drove out of here at like 2 a.m, got there, first light, got in and had an amazing festival. 95 was a fallow year, they call it, so no festival. But then we were back, I think it was 96, I think it was. It was 97 because Sting was there, and I know he was there because I definitely saw Sting. so what happened in 97 was probably the most amazing job that anybody could have. Okay, so picture this.
Oh, I'm picturing.
We go down a week early to the festival site, and it's one of these years when it's a mud fest. Now, Glastonbury's famous for it pissing down with rain.
Okay.
It's normally lovely in the weeks leading up to it, and then it pisses down with rain, and it's a quagmire with 100,000 people there. It's a mess in hours.
Gross.
But what we had was the solar showers, where what they had done is they had essentially got a lovely green field. They built a really massive polytunnel. Inside the tunnel, they will change an area, and then was like the shower, which in effect was like a giant car wash. So we had big plywood panel board with sponges in them, and you could crank a handle and it all spun round and turned over, and there was like jets of water and messing around.
So it was a big makeshift
awesome.
shower. It was like a big makeshift shower room.
Yeah, but it was communal. It was men, women mixed.
Yeah, buddy.
Massive, big open shower. Yeah, exactly. Now, there's a you walked past that, you got changed a bit, and then the last sort of section of the polytunnel was like a rockery, straw bales, little sort of water feature thing, and where you could chill out and stuff. And most people, get showered, get cleaned up, and then sit and have a smoke, have a spliff or whatever in there. Okay. Then to power this, they had a big mud pile outside with a massive hose pipe and then earth on top, and the water slowly fed through. And it generally did produce really nice warm water. So I get the job of manning the shower is one of my, because for some reason they thought I was responsible at like 19, I would have been, or something, 19. I'm responsible, 19, 20 years old, to look after all these naked, amazing people at a festival. So we go on shift, and then the most beautiful people are coming in, taking off all of their clothes, all muddy, and getting in a open shower, and everybody's a mess, and we're just like clean, and we're all camping behind in a lovely field. We just got shorts on, like, barefoot, no tops on, all ripped, like. And we'd been sponsored by this company called The Body Shop, and they'd given us these massive gallon drums of apple body wash and that. So we had them in like almost like super soakers, and there's just these amazing, topless women or whatever.
This has to be the greatest job you could have at this age.
And it was just the most insane job any person could wish for. But then we started noticing that there's band people that we know. There's band members coming in, getting naked and just getting in with it with everyone else. And that is the year, and I swear to you, I saw Sting naked. And on the same day, Paul McGann. So I saw Doctor Who's dick and Sting's dick on the same day.
The same day.
Mic drop. And it was, and I kept, and I must admit, I got quite lucky over that weekend because we had amazing accommodation, some really good weed, and
I don't even know what to say.
Clean bodies.
That story will never not leave me speechless. Okay, never not. It will just never not.
And it's just 100% the truest thing. It was just the most amazing weekend.
You hit the young man lottery.
All with the fact that, you've got the fucking Foo Fighters and Prodigy and Radiohead and just amazing people, man. The music's just like, hanging over the festival site. It's just what an experience. Just
an amazing music festival where on top of it, you got to see all the pretty naked people.
Yes.
It's incredible.
They were amazing.
That is incredible. I can't believe that there would be anybody else with it. Well, maybe one or two in the world, but that is such a rare story to hear.
It's like I say, it was just it's a bizarre, and I said the weird thing is you sort of